Greetings and welcome to TMH English News with me, Deletna Dewalko. Tigray government says foreign actors taking part in the genocidal campaign against the people of Tigray must be brought before the ICC. Alex DeWall, executive director of the World Peace Foundation, says Abi Ahmeds and co.'s false dream of revived empire will be buried for good soon. A violent overthrow of Abi's government is said to be all too likely. The government of Tigray says foreign actors taking part in the genocidal campaign against the people of Tigray must be brought forth before the International Criminal Court. The government of Tigray today set out a strict warning to all foreign actors who, in collaboration with the fascist regime of Abi Ahmed's government, are taking part in the genocidal campaign against the people of Tigray. The statement said over the past 3.5 years, Abi Ahmed's predatory clique, having caused the cumulative erosion of the country's sovereignty out of a reckless disregard for the national's interest, has effectively handed over control of the country's core national security institutions to foreign actors. Of the numerous national institutions that have been thoroughly stripped of their identity as a symbol of national sovereignty, have become a playground for nefarious foreign actors, and that the country's defense, intelligence, and security sectors can be cited as principal examples. The hired advisors and foot soldiers who have been accepted the destructive mission of Abi's regime are embedded in the country's defense and intelligence and the security institutions, and roaming freely within them is what the statement added, as well as that thus directly or indirectly responsible for the genocide being perpetrated against the people of Tigray, they must be brought before the International Criminal Court and held accountable for their horrific crimes. The government of Tigray called on the mercenaries to make amends for their depravities by the refraining of the committing and facilitating the commission of further atrocities against the people of Tigray and leaving the country immediately for good. The government of Tigray also demanded that all countries whose citizens are directly or indirectly involved in Abi Ahmed's regime and genocidal campaign against the people of Tigray prevail in their citizens to desist from their vicious, illegal, and morally repugnant actions and return home. In the absence of compliance to that request, the statement warned that the government of Tigray and the Tigray Armed Forces will not be liable to any harm that these foreign citizens, knee-deep in Abi Ahmed's criminal enterprise, suffer. Ethiopian government outlines terms for possible Tigray ceasefire talks. Foreign Ministry spokesperson says Tigrayan forces should exit the Amhara in the Afar region, stop attacks, and recognize government's legitimacy. This comes following the days of international diplomatic efforts aimed at halting and testifying hostilities. Foreign Ministry spokesman Dina Mufti told reporters on Thursday that one of the conditions for possible talks, which he stressed have not been agreed to, would be for Tigray forces to withdraw from the Amhara and the Afar regions bordering Tigray. There are conditions. First, stop the attacks. Second, leave the areas you have entered. And third, recognize the legitimacy of this government, he said. Member of the Tigray Armed Forces Central Command, Getachew Reda, has previously stated that the pulling out of the Amhara and the Afar regions before talks begin is an absolute non-starter. The Tigray Armed Forces are demanding, among other things, the end of the blockade on Tigray's region, where hundreds of thousands of people are believed to be living in famine-like conditions. Alex DeWall, executive director of the World Peace Foundation, says Abi Ahmed and co.'s false dream of a revived empire will be buried for good. In a message he conveyed marking the first year of the genocidal war on Tigray, Alex, who is also a research professor at the Fletcher School at Tufts University, said the price Ethiopia as a state will pay for the attempt to destroy Tigray will be extremely huge.
The price will be that Tigray will never, for sure, entrust its security to anyone other than itself, and will never put its international relations and aid partnerships in the hands of anybody except itself.
He was extremely blunt in his message to the UN and the Security Council, the Secretary General, and many others in positions of responsibility.
Shame on you. Shame. Shame for your silence. Shame for your failure to stand up for basic humanity and for all the principles for which the United Nations was founded. Shame on you for your failure to stop starvation. Shame on you for failing to call out those responsible for inflicting it on the innocent. And shame on you for your appeasement of the perpetrators of the grossest crimes against humanity, every crime prohibited under the solemn commitments of the United Nations. For sure, there is a reckoning at the United Nations that is coming. And even more so, the African Union, which has betrayed the norms and principles that animated its foundational constitutive act, the principle of non-indifference to grave circumstance, the principle of the responsibility of neighbors to offer and the responsibility of states to accept mediation when offered in good faith. The Assembly Hall of the African Union is constructed on the site of the former central prison Alambakanya. The ghosts of those who died in that prison under the reign of terror during Mengistu Haile Mariam, those ghosts have not been exorcised. Those who meet in that Assembly Hall, the officials and leaders, are still haunted by those ghosts, imprisoned within those walls. 1 year on, they must reckon with their failure.
Alex also added that the people of Tigray have had to undergo an unspeakable suffering and injustice which was made worse, the silence of the international community. He lauded that the members and the leadership of the Tigray Armed Forces, saying the doctrine of just war has rarely had so clear and exemplar. Today marks the eve of the one-year anniversary of the massacre in Garut Massacre of northern eastern Tigray by the Eritrean forces. Tigray TV reporters recently traveled to that small town in the northern eastern part of Tigray region and spoke to the survivors and their witnesses.
My name is Priest ገብረ ዮሐንስ Teke. I am a resident of Garut Massacre. It was on November 13, 2020. They shelled the city first. People just started running to hide in caves to save their lives. Shortly after, the Eritrean soldiers started coming into the city. It was around 11 a.m. when they started shooting at residents.
My name is Abadit Gavramadhan. I was trying to escape Sa'du. We left the bodies there and spent the night elsewhere. Me and my neighbors asked them to give us the bodies, but they refused. I watched dogs eating the corpse, and when I tried to chase them away, the Eritreans told me to stop and asked what difference it would make if the dead was eaten by dogs or not. So we gave up and stopped asking them.
We begged them for days. We told them it was inhuman against our culture to leave dead bodies unburied. They refused for 5 days, but later said that we could. It was probably because they couldn't take the smell anymore. They told us we could bury some of the bodies where they had been laying, on the street. They wouldn't allow us to bury them in churches.
This is one of the many massacres committed by the Eritrean forces in the Tigray region. Ethiopia Analyst at Eurasia Group says violent overthrow of Abi's government looks all too likely. Connor Vasey, Ethiopia's analyst at Eurasia Group, said the prime minister and the government officials faced the prospect of war crime charges, and adding that this meant that they don't have much incentive to stand down for their soldiers. The United States is now trying to broker a ceasefire to avoid a battle inside the capital, but a violent overthrow of Abi's government looks all too likely at the moment. Vasey also pointed out that both sides know talks are necessary to avoid further bloodshed and disruption, but are stuck on the belief that they can beat the other side into irrelevance before the negotiations begin. Abi's government kills 38 prisoners of war and maims scores in a drone attack near Kimse, and the drone attack was inflicted on 105 prisoners of war who were being transported from the Kimse to Tigray, killing 38 and wounding 21 of their people. The prisoners of war said Abi's government attack on those who moments ago were fighting his war are showing that he lost the war. Italian aid workers arrested in Ethiopia. A 50-year-old Italian aid worker and member of the Celestine Orders among the many foreign nationals, including many UN staffers arrested recently by the Ethiopian government. News of Alberto Livoni's arrest was reported by Rome daily La Repubblica, and the sources confirmed this report. The situation is delicate, they said, and noting that while arrested, people are normally released after 72 hours if no charges pressed, the current state of emergency has suspended such provisions. Sources added that Italian embassy in Addis Ababa is closely following the case in a tight liaison with the foreign ministry in Rome. That wraps up our news for today. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend.